Okay, here's the first type of feeder we're going to look at. This is probably the most common one, just generally called a hopper feeder. It holds all kinds of bird seed. Usually it hangs from a hook or a tree limb, or you can mount it on a post. This thing about these is there's usually a lid on the top, and you just pour your seed in here. The birds come down here and perch. And I would recommend the seed like you see there, the millet or a mix. You can put Blackwell sunflower seed in there. I don't anymore because I get mobbed with house sparrows and house finches. And so I would also not use a mix of millet seed and sunflower seed because the house finches will just throw out all the millet trying to get to the sunflower seeds. That's what they want the most. But it's great for other kinds of finches and lots of general birds. If you don't have house finch problems, then Blackwell sunflower seed would do well. You want to get a hopper feeder that's easy to clean. I'll be talking about that more later, but this one, for example, you can just pull out the one side and you can get in there and clean it out really well. And so that's an important feature. Some bird feeders are not really good about that. So that's one example of a hopper feeder. Okay, here's another kind of feeder. This is what was called a tube feeder, and you'll find all kinds of sizes and configurations for this kind of feeder, but this is your basic one. Holes here, perches for the birds to sit on. The best thing to use in these is sunflower seeds, black oil, or the sunflower seeds without the shell. If you use a seed mix, a lot of the birds will just try to get the sunflower, and tons of the seed will just fall on the ground as they dig around, and they actually will, with their beaks, just kind of scoop out the other smaller seeds. So I just use regular sunflower seed in this, or some of the safflower. You could use chopped peanuts as well, but I found my problem, and many parts in the West are going to be those house finches again. They just would sit here and gorge on this, not let any other birds like black-capped chickadees or juncos or any of the others get to it. So I quit using this, unfortunately. But if you don't have that problem where you are, it's a great feeder. This one is by Droll Yankee, which is a long-time brand, pretty expensive. One like this now in a garden shop or a wild bird store would cost you 40 bucks. You can get much cheaper ones now in your average Walmart, for example, that are similar. The only thing is that these Droll Yankee tubes are lifetime warranty. So mine broke, cracked after 20 some winters, and they gave me a brand new tube for free. So that's kind of nice. One thing about these feeders is you need to clean them regularly. And fortunately, the top comes right off. You can see there like that. And on the bottom, there's different ways. This older one just has some screws that you would unscrew here and take the bottom off. And you clean them with a long brush, like this, with soap and water. This is just a baby bottle brush you can get at the grocery store for a couple of bucks. Again, in a wild bird store, they have these long brushes. That would work a little better, but they're like, $15, $20. So it's just not necessary. And also, an old toothbrush works great. Just soap and water and toothbrush. You can get in all the different parts in here to clean really well. And I would do that when the weather warms up and things start getting warm and it's raining and the seed gets wet. Mold can be a real problem in these enclosed tube feeders. Some other feeders that are kind of fun. This is designed for perching birds like chickadees. The idea is they have to hang on the edge here to get the seed that's inside. And again, this would be for sunflower seed. The top rotates until the hole is exposed there, so you can put the seed in there. Again, I thought this would outsmart the house finches, but it didn't. They caught on pretty quick. So sadly, I don't use this anymore either. But again, if that's not a problem for you, it's fun to watch chickadees, nuthatches, and other birds that perch and aren't afraid to actually almost hang upside down. Will eat out of this one just well. And again, it's easy to get in there and clean too. This one This again is for sunflower seed, not the small millet seed. Easily cleaned. Just the top comes off and you can get in there and clean it, so it's kind of fun. You'll see a lot of these now, brightly colored ones. I don't think the color makes any difference whether birds come or not. That's kind of a gimmick. It doesn't matter. They're looking for the sunflower seeds. Again, house finches will just sit on the perch and gorge and eat it all. They'll make a big mess because they, if you'll see later in a video, chickadees grab a seed and fly off. Some of the finches, like house finches and house sparrows, they just sit here and gorge and they leave a big mess on the ground. So I've had to not use this one either. And finally, this is for thistle. Similar, it's not really a tube feeder, it's got the screen-like thing. Again, the top comes off really easy to clean. The bottom is easily removed with that little clip, so you can get in there with that brush and clean it with soap and water. Again, in the spring, you need to do that, I'd say, you know, if it's raining a lot, once a week, at least, with soap and water. And I'll show you some other things about cleaning a little bit later. So this is a nice thistle feeder. You wouldn't want to put anything else in here. That's what it's designed for. Again, the only drawback to these is that the seeds kind of fall out pretty easily, and so you again have kind of a mess on the ground. So this is kind of an interesting one. I call this the Death Star feeder, and this is designed to keep big birds like jays. You know, in the West we don't have blue jays, but we do have Steller's jays, scrub jays, maybe starlings, and where I live, magpies, black-billed magpies will try to get at, if I put anything in there. Now you could put sunflower seeds in here easily, but they're not the problem for where so I use chopped peanuts to attract nuthatches and woodpeckers, chickadees, and I put this in here, and this outer armor keeps the big magpies from getting in there, but it will also keep out woodpeckers, which you want usually. So this is just an example of what's out there. You'll see these around, but that's what they're for, is to keep bigger unwanted birds out of what's in the inner part here. Again, easily clean. Get in there with that brush I showed you earlier, and you can clean that out pretty well. So of course, you can make your own feeders too, just examples. I haven't shown you one of these yet. This is called a platform feeder. It's just a rectangular platform that you can hang from a tree, or you can put on a post and mount on the ground. And these are, so I made this one years ago, just holes for the rain to come through. So a very simple feeder, easily made, and works great, especially with birds that want to be on the ground, that normally would not feed on any of the tube feeders and that, but they will feed in this. Some of your doves will do that, and spotted towhees, they will do that. In fact, this is the only feeder I've had a spotted towhee come to. I'll show you what. Now let's look at another kind of food for birds that aren't seeds. Some you may think unlikely, such as peanut butter. Downy woodpeckers love peanut butter. So do juncos. The dark-eyed juncos love peanut butter, as well as the red-breasted nuthatch, black-capped chickadee, and mountain chickadee. I've had all those eat quite a bit of peanut butter. And also a product called suet. And let's take a look at those and the kind of feeders that you would put them on. This is what's called the clinging bird feeder. It's an effort to keep other birds that would raid all the food. And I bought one to keep house finches from mobbing it and eating all the sunflower seeds. House finches just sit there and gorge themselves and make a big mess. So clinging birds are birds like chickadees, nuthatches, goldfinches that will actually hang even upside down. So the idea is you fill it with sunflower seed, and this really narrow space here, they only will, supposedly only clinging birds can eat from it. But actually the house finches have figured it out. But it's still a nice feeder to have. You can see the house finches have learned to perch and hang there and get the seeds, and have emptied it. Okay, so here's some thoughts about feeding the Niger thistle, the fine black seed that I showed you earlier in the other video. And this is an easy way to do it. It's called a sock feeder, and you can buy this full of thistle seed or Niger. It's called both. And you could use that scoop device I told you about and fill it up with the seed. And the birds will cling to this and eat the fine seed out of it. It is kind of messy though, that's the one drawback. A lot of seed falls out on the ground. So just this year, I've decided to try something a little better. This is way more expensive, but you can see it's got those little feeding ports, and the birds will cling all up and down this spiral perch to eat the Niger. You don't lose nearly as much on the ground. And when you first click on this video, you'll see the beginning segment, or the other videos, you'll see a picture of mostly goldfinches and I'm blanking out. Some other birds clinging to this and eating the Niger thistle. So a lot of them will like that. The only drawback to this is that the lowest port, once the seed gets below this line, or this feeding hole down inside there, they can't get it. So sometimes when it gets that low, then I will pour the rest of it into one of these little socks and hang it where they can get pretty much all of it. So just a tip, and it's easy to clean. Again, you always want these feeders that you buy to be easy to clean. So the top just comes off, and you can get down in there with that brush. This one, because it's got these cool looking copper fittings, is more expensive. It's nicer looking, but you can get much cheaper ones, but often they're red, green, yellow. I don't know that makes a whole lot of difference to the birds, but it's just nicer to look at when you look out your window. Here's a downside to thistle seed. You can see the mess it makes on the ground, and to a lesser extent sunflower seeds, the black soil sunflower seeds. But they do both leave shells on the ground. It can be kind of messy, and you just have to shovel them up in the winter, scatter them around, or in the summer just rake them up. It's usually the easiest way to deal with it. Another kind of feeder, not sure what you call it. I just call it the ball feeder, but it holds black oil sunflower seed. You can see in there again, perching birds, clinging birds, like chickadees, nuthatches. They will hang upside down and get these, and again, it won't be mobbed by the house finches nearly as much. And when you hang these feeders, I do recommend these clear plastic covers. You probably have to get these online. Sometimes you'll see them in hardware stores, but these cover the feeders so they don't get soaking wet. The thing that's going to cause the feed to spoil the fastest is to get all wet. So I encourage in the winter or spring with a lot of rain that you get these plastic covers.